Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Michael J.
Where do we start, man?
Dude, spoilers. We started talking about Nico Bolas yesterday, and I think Bolas is definitely in the running for most defining cards of this set. There's a different 5-cost dragon of sorts that kind of want to start there, and that's Niv Mizzet Reborn. Costs the full Wooburg, legendary creature, dragon avatar. So for white, blue, black, red, green, you get a 6/6 flyer. Okay, tell me more. When Niv Mizzet Reborn enters the battlefield, reveal the top 10 cards of your library. For each color pair, choose a card that's exactly those colors from among them. Put the chosen cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So, for instance, when you play Niv Mizzet, you could pick Teferi as your Azorius card, the Scarab God as your Dimir card. And do you see what I mean?
Yeah, you could just be like Cinder Vines and Selesnya Charm, like whatever it was.
As long as it's exactly 2 colors, so it's even theoretically possible that you'll draw all 10. If your top 10 cards were 10 different cards from all 10 guilds. 10
different cards, right?
Right. So this Niv Mizzet, isn't this Niv Mizzet a 6/6 flyer that if you build towards it, aren't you going to, on the average, draw like 4 cards?
I don't know if it's 4. I mean, I'd have to see the shell.
Maybe 2 or 3 cards?
I mean, yeah, I'm definitely thinking probably more in the neighborhood of 2 or 3 cards. Right? Like, you're not going to have
That's a great Mole Drifter.
Yeah, this is a good card. This is a solid guy. But yeah, he's a... This is a really challenging card. I remember when the last Niv Mizzet was spoiled, Niv Mizzet Perun, right? People were saying it was too hard to cast. I didn't think it was too hard to cast. And its upside is tremendous. This one, I don't know, Patrick, what do you think? This one looks aggressively difficult to cast to me.
Why? You can play stuff like Dragon Horde and Sarkhan.
Yeah, all right.
Isn't Sarkhan just perfect for casting Niv Mizzet?
It's certainly helpful, and with I think when you're talking about the artifact help, that is going to be helpful. So yeah, this is not an easy cast though. No, you got to earn it. That's true. you do got to earn it. But this is that messed up kind of tidings with selection that for no reason has a 6/6 flyer in play already. It's like, whoa, where did you come from, buddy? Oh yeah, this is some kind of Mole Drifter. I think that's a very good way of putting it.
You don't think this card's going to find a home?
I did not say that. There are maniacs out there like Zvi Moshowitz who are probably already building towards this. I think. For me, there are so many new ideas in War of the Spark. This is not one of the ones that's currently scratching one of my itches. Okay,
I bet I know a card that'll scratch one of your itches. Yeah. Angras Rampage. This is that black-red sorcery. Choose one. Target player sacrifices an artifact, or target player sacrifices a creature, or target player sacrifices a planeswalker.
I think that card is okay. It's super solid. You
think this card is super solid?
It's good. Yeah, it's great. It's better than super solid. Yes, it's very good.
Isn't this really good?
Yeah, it's good. It's very good.
Besides, doesn't Bedevil have too many black pips on it for your kind of tastes?
I did not mean to say that it was not very good. It's a very good card. It is a very, very, very good card. It is. You because you choose one, you get to aim a little bit more than this card is implying, and you can get a tremendous amount of kind of value on the mana because this card is so cheap, right? It's not just better than Dreadbore, but it is very good.
Yeah, it's not strictly better by any means, but I mean, don't you like this card in Modern?
Oh, yeah, I think that the fact that people typically don't have more than one Planeswalker in play, and you could so you always get their Planeswalker if you want to, is a big deal. I think
it also kills their Boggles or their Geist of St. Traft, and it can also hit artifacts.
Wait, hold on a second. Did you say this kills their Geist of St. Traft or their Boggle?
Yeah.
Sorry, let me rephrase my opinion on this. This is the best. It's fantastic. Thank you for pointing that out to me. It's my new favorite card in the set.
Dude, isn't this just... Yeah, this card seems like... Wow, has Corey Burkhart been waiting for this card in Modern, right? Like, obviously, a lot of people who play artifacts are going to have other artifacts they could sack. So you're not always going to get your money against the artifact people. But it does have spots, right? Like, depending on what their artifact is, there's going to occasionally be spots for that. The more exciting thing is the fact that you get to play with an edict that can hit planeswalkers. So I don't know. Sometimes people only have one artifact.
I also think that in the matchups where you're going to bring this in, because it's probably not going to be too popular as a main deck card in Modern, that the creatures that you're going to want to be killing, even if you don't get to aim, are usually going to be pretty big, right? Like they might have a Gurmag Angler and a Death Shadow, and it's not that you don't have a preference as to which one dies, but you're happy with either body dying.
Sure. What about Dovin's Veto? Another 2-color, probably going to show up in a fair bit in Modern. Dovin's Veto is a special kind of negate. It's blue-white, instant. The spell can't be countered. Counter target non-creature spell. So it's a negate that's uncounterable, but it costs blue-white.
I think it's fine. I think that it's certainly going to be played. It's not super.
You don't think it's not that much higher, but it's like if you're playing blue-white, you might as well play it.
Yeah, I mean, there is an argument that you should be playing it instead of negate if you're in blue-white, but I don't even think the value is that much higher. The extra oomph on this is that it can't be countered, right? So in exchange for that, you have a slightly harder color requirement here, but this isn't the same as a counter squall. The problem is that if you're in a counterspell fight, which is where this is supposed to be valuable, oftentimes they can just counter up on the stack against you. So they don't counter the Dovin's Veto, but effectively...
No. You're countering their thing.
Oh, I know.
They're playing a combo deck, whether it's Modern or Legacy. They're playing a combo deck. If you just Dovin's Veto it, they can't force their combo through. Maybe that's even more important in Legacy, where people protect their combos with Force of Wills.
Oh, you know what? But I think that's pretty good. Yeah, I think in Legacy, I see it, and it's good. I mean, like I said, it was certainly going to be played. It's not that exciting to me, but I think I probably underrated the impact in Legacy. This is probably a really, really, really solid sideboard card for Blue-White Miracles. I doubt they'll play it main deck.
Okay. Your bread and butter is the aggro, the red aggro. What about your Dreadhorde Butcher? Black-red 1/1 zombie warrior with haste. When it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. And when it dies, deal damage equal to its power to any target.
So this is kind of a differently flexible, potentially easier to cast Slith Firewalker, which has some extra upside for when it dies, right?
Big upside. I think the death trigger is an important part of this card's recipe.
Sure, this is a solid guy. I think I'll probably be happy to play this if I'm in the aggro mode come War of the Spark. None of these cards, believe it or not, none of these 2 casting cost cards are the ones that are scratching my itch for these days.
You don't like Dreadhorde Butcher in like a Judith deck?
It's good. It is good. It's just like Dovin's Veto. I think it'll be played. I think it'll have positive impact. It's very
okay. Where are your eyes?
There are 2 things that I am crazy about in this set so far. Crazy about.
Yep.
One of them is a new mechanic, and then one of them I think is almost a new style of play. Right.
Okay.
So we can start with which one do you want to start with? The new mechanic or the new style?
Either one. Dealer's choice.
All right. I think that the army mechanic, the amass mechanic, is really, really it's rich, it's flavorful, and I think in some cases it's going to be really powerful, right? Let's start with Dreadhorde Invasion.
Of course,
right. So wanted to be for an enchantment at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and amass 1, and so amass is if you don't have an army, you make a 0/0 and then amass for the number. So in this case, you would get a 1/1. But if you do have an army, then it becomes a 2/2, right? It becomes a 3/3 every turn.
But you're getting +1/+1.
Yep. But it has the extra text, which is whenever a zombie token you control with power 6 or greater attacks, it gains lifelink until end of turn. And notably here, it doesn't have to be an army, right? You could have other zombie creature tokens. For example, we were talking yesterday about Liliana Dread Horde General, which makes 2/2 zombie creature tokens. If one of those somehow got 6 power, it would also gain lifelink. So you can have this spread across multiple bodies. Although, as far as I've seen so far, you can only ever have one army, right? Effectively.
Right. Yeah, effectively. I mean, you can do shenanigans where you clone it or whatever, but in reality, you're not doing anything.
Right? Like, that's the thing, even if you clone it. Because you don't clone the counters.
Right. Well, you're not getting anywhere good trying to go that route. Yeah.
Yeah, so typically you're only going to have one army, but that army could be really meaningful. And I think Dreadhorde Invasion, this screams to me it's going to be one of the most powerful, most important cards in the set.
Dude, you ready for my hot take?
Yes.
I think this card is fine, way overrated.
Really?
Yeah, everybody's talking about this is the new Bitter Blossom. And it's like, I get that it has the same casting cost and card type as Bitter Blossom. And I get that you lose a life every turn. But, like, okay, let's start with compare a 1/1 flyer to a 1/1 on the ground.
Yep.
Or a +1/+1 counter on your 1/1 on the ground, right?
I don't think this is exactly Bitter Blossom.
But, like, isn't a +1/+1 counter on whatever creature, like, substantially worse? Like, it's worse than a 1/1.
Yes.
In general.
Absolutely.
And a 1/1 is well worse than a 1/1 flyer.
Well, so let me address.
And how much money are you getting out of this when a zombie token you control attacks with power 6 or greater?
Well, that's pretty cool.
It's cool, definitely. I think this card's fine. It's just that it's so much worse than Bitter Blossom. I think that the people who are jumping to the extremes might be, I don't know. So, it's fine. The card's fine. I bet it's going to break a lot of hearts when they play with it and find out that it's only fine.
2 responses to that. First of all, I 100% agree. This card is weaker than Bitter Blossom. But when you're rating it against Bitter Blossom...
By a lot.
Bitter Blossom was wildly too powerful for Standard. And
was it?
Yeah, wildly too powerful.
So do you think Bitter Blossom would have been too good at 3?
No, but it wasn't 3.
Right. What I'm saying is it was like a mana too cheap.
Yeah, so I think the part of the problem with Bitter Blossom was also its typing. So this is only an enchantment, and Bitter Blossom was a fairy enchantment. And I think that was like, it seems
that can
like
be part of it.
A minor thing. But the fact that it kept so many Mistbind clicks alive through removal over the course of time, like, I think that was just a big...
It's probably more, maybe, and it's going to be something the Dreadbore Invasion doesn't do.
Yeah. So...
to me, that tribal aspect is roughly comparable to when a zombie token you control with power 6 or greater attacks against lifelink until end of turn. I think the tribal ability is a little bit better. But my point is that if Bitter Blossom costs 3, it would have been fine. And Dreadhorde Invasion costing 2, it's like a 1/1 on the ground or a +1/+1 counter on your guy on the ground is so much worse than a 1/1 flyer.
So absolutely no question, right? However, so one, I would agree with you, right? This card is not Bitter Blossom. It is weaker than Bitter Blossom, although obviously it does ask for some direct comparisons because of its casting costs and that life.
Yeah, but I'm not even comparing it to Bitter Blossom. I'm saying compare it to a Bitter Blossom that made fairies that don't fly.
I'm agreeing with you. Here's the reason why I think that the army mechanic, the mass mechanic, is so good. It's a linear. It's not just like I have this thing and I can only make one army. Like when you start combining it with cards like Widespread Brutality. Widespread Brutality is 1B RR for a sorcery, amass 2, then the army you amass deals damage equal to its power to each non-army creature. I mean, like, there are gonna be enough cards that are amassing that, like...
That's fair. That's a good point.
It is gonna warp Magic. Like, I really think, like, I feel like Magic with War of the Spark is going to feel like a different game than we play before. It's going to have a lot of the great things we love about Magic, but it's going to be reminiscent of other card games. Like, this is, I'm just imagining how Amass is working. I'm imagining how some of these Planeswalkers are going to interact on the battlefield with and against one another. And, like, I think Amass Army Linear is going to be, like, really, really cool. I mean, I think Invade the City, I'm already asking myself questions like, is Invade the City better than a Drake? Would I play it with a Drake, right? Like, questions like that. Like, Invade the City, 1 blue, red for Amass X, where X is the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. Like, you can have, like, it could just be a 10-10, right, for 3. And then you can combine it with cards like Widespread Brutality. Like, it's so, like, these cards are just gluing together way more than one power at a time. I just think that Dreadhorde Invasion, it's just like a great pillar for army building. But all of these army cards are so cool and so powerful.
But, like,
know, maybe
isn't Dreadhorde Invasion, if you're playing a dedicated Amass deck, isn't it the same as pay a life to get a +1/+1 counter?
But the thing is, like,
or are you just all about the life link? No trouble.
I mean, I think I'm partially all about the 2 casting cost. I get a meaningful threat or, threat engine in play so after turn 2, it's possible that my entire game plan is just this Dreadhorde Invasion, and then I use my mana for the rest of the game to build advantages, right? Like draw cards, make sure I'm hitting my land drops, competing with their planeswalkers, whatever I have to do. Or it just catalyzes me, and then, like, I just, goof around with this for a while casting Chemist's Insights or whatever I'm doing for a few turns, or shocking their creatures. And then I just go, like, into a big Invade the City onto the army I already have, so I don't have to worry about it being summoning sick this turn. Then boom, gotcha. Here comes my lifelink on a 6 or greater power zombie token. Like, and I think that this is just it. Like Widespread Brutality is too good. Like, its fail state is like a Pyroclasm for 4 is too expensive, but that's not the only thing that it is. That's the thing.
Getting a 2/2 that deals 2 damage to everything else is fantastic.
Yeah, like this card is, like, its fail state is so good. And, like, if you combine it with anything, with Invade the City, with Dreadhorde Invasion, with any of these other amassing, there's tons of other cards that are amassing. Obviously, some of them are going to be good enough to play and some aren't. But, like, these, I feel like we're going to be playing a different game. Or it's going to be Magic that is just so differently tactically rich than the Magic we have been playing for the past few months.
Interesting. In terms of tactics, what do you think of the tactical use of Karn the Great Creator in Modern, with just how powerful of sideboard options there are?
Wow. So Karn the Great Creator is it's got a lot of things going for it, not the least of which is just the casting cost is very nice for a card this powerful.
So Karn's a 4-cost walker with 4 loyalty. Activated abilities of artifacts your opponent's control can't be activated, which does include Mox Opal and Dark Steel Citadel, etc. Arcbound Ravager, all that. It's Stony Silence one way, right?
Unbanning KCI just to see what happens now that there's Karn.
Well, Karn's still costs 4, but Karn's +1 ability is until your next turn, up to 1 target non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness, each equal to its converted mana cost. So, against your opponent, you can do stuff like turn their Darksteel Citadel into a 0/0 that dies, right? But, like, or their Mox Opal for that matter. But for yourself, you can just you'll randomly be powering your guy up and just boom, get in there with whatever artifact mana you have laying around besides Mox Opal. I mean, I don't know if we're at the spot where it's time for Vidalcan Shackles yet or whatever, but like
doubling up,
get it. But The real juice here is the -2. You may choose an artifact card you own from outside the game or in exile, reveal that card, and put it into your hand. So this includes your sideboard, right? And so, like, level 1 is doing stuff like, oh, I could go get my one Tormod's Crypt or Relic of Progenitus or Grafdigger's Cage or whatever, right? Or maybe I have like one sweet victory condition in the sideboard, right? Or even just depending on the context, maybe I get Mindslaver. I don't know, right? Maybe I go get a Vidalcan Shackles, whatever the thing is. But you can go deeper. Picture this card in Legacy, where in your sideboard you have one copy of Painter's Servant and one copy of Grindstone.
So you could just like put like a 2-card combo package into any deck that was playing this card.
Right, like if you have Karn in your deck, you can, if you are willing to dedicate 2 sideboard slots to Painter Servant and Grindstone, Karn alone wins the game in 2 turns. You just go Karn minus, and you have one combo piece, and even if they kill Karn, you have a combo piece. Or if he lives, you just go minus again and get the other combo piece, play it, kill your opponent if you have 6 mana total, you know?
What do you think about this card, maybe even in Standard, in combination with Bolas's Citadel?
Sure. So Bolas's Citadel is 3 black, black, black for a legendary artifact. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play the top card of your library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its converted mana cost rather than pay its mana cost. And you can tap it and sacrifice 10 non-land permanents. Each opponent loses 10 life. I mean, it's definitely a high-impact artifact, and if you had this in the sideboard as a thing to go get, it's extremely powerful in some spots. I wonder, are you talking about just Bolas's Citadel for value, or are you talking about a spot where your deck has actually got a lot of life gain in it?
Oh, I was just thinking you would just get Bolas's Citadel and swing for 6, because no, I wasn't really thinking that, but you could do that. You could do that.
Yeah.
So Bolas's Citadel is the scariest card I have seen in a long while. Right, so it's 2 more mana than Experimental Frenzy for like some kind of crazily unhitched Experimental Frenzy.
Well, you have it's also ad nauseum, right?
Yeah, but it also doesn't have Experimental Frenzy's limitation. You could just play cards out of your hand normally.
Right.
Like, that is the crazy unhitched thing. Like, you don't have to, I have like a 10 on top of my deck, I have to pay 10. You don't have to do that. Nobody's making you do that. That's on the bonus.
Right, and you could also just draw a card with, like, any cantrip, right? And then keep going. Oh,
I mean, like, you know, on Magic Arena, they just, like, gave away these, like, revitalizes that are, you know, specially animated. Everybody's going to have a reason to play those cards, right? That card is just like only 2 mana but gains 3 life and draws a card. I mean, you don't even have to be able to cast it, right? Bolas's Citadel will cast it for you, and you're just going to net 2, right? You're going to net a life and you're going to net a card draw. It's I don't know. I think this card is frightening.
It's very powerful. Yeah, it's interesting how best to take advantage of it. How hard should you try? I know it's going to be one of the cards I work with the most. I mean, there's little things, right? Like, are you supposed to do stuff like play Diamond Demare?
Oh, I don't know. I was thinking about playing Wayward Swordtooth. Like, I think that Wayward Swordtooth is actually going to be a lot of value here.
That's interesting.
Right, because if, among other things, the Swordtooth helps you get Bolas's Citadel out faster. Right, like if you've just got, like, you know, if you're just like second turn Swordtooth or whatever, you can easily play Bolas's Citadel. You know, turn 3.
And being able to play 2 land off the top with Bolas's Citadel is great.
Because I think the only thing limiting Bolas's Citadel is if you're going to hit a land pocket, and he just gets you out of that. Also, they're best friends, right? Like, Wayward Swordtooth needs to have the city's blessing in order to be an effective, you know, something other than you know, an Azusa. And Bolas's Citadel wants to have Temperments in play, too. They're best buddies. Let's go 5/5.
Dude, is this card just, like, I mean, maybe it's just too over the top, but isn't this card you immediately win in in Legacy? Probably in Modern.
I mean, if you play this in a deck of just like all like zeros or whatever, like everything's super cheap.
I guess you get stuck in a land pocket if you're not careful. You have to have something.
Yeah, but if you've got stuff to clear the land pockets, right? Like you can either have cards like if you're just playing eggs, right? Like your eggs can help you, or is there stuff that nets mana? Like if you're playing it for free and then
Legacy, Lotus Petal, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, or Moxes will do the same thing.
Lion's Eye Diamond.
So, Lion's Eye Diamond has almost no drawback with Bolas' Citadel.
Yeah.
I mean, again, barring the land pocket issue. So, I think...
Yeah, but I mean, in Legacy, I think it's conceivable that you could play Bolas' Citadel in some kind of a deck that has, like, very, very, very few lands in it.
Oh. You certainly could. And you could, I mean, I think of Dark Rituals being red, but in some formats, they're still black. Yeah.
I also think that there's some advantages that people might be sleeping on regarding the difference between Bolas' Citadel and a card like Ad Nauseam. It's a lot easier to cheat artifacts into play than it is to cheat, sorceries or instants.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, the card is crazily powerful, and I think it's okay if you've got Karn first, you can go get it, and it's okay if you've got Bolas' Citadel first and Karn's on top. Like I can just imagine just playing Karn off of Bolas' Citadel, and like it's on.
So is this the card that you wanted to speak of? That was just like one card, very powerful.
No, actually, it was.
What's the card?
Just something that's exciting to me. So. In addition to kind of the amass and army changes I envision happening for Standard, the thing that I was really thinking about is implied by the card Teferi Time Raveler. But I think it is just permeating through so many different cards, like as a theme. And so let's talk about what Teferi is to begin with, and then I'll tell you what I think this kind of theme is. Teferi Time Raveler is an extraordinary planeswalker. For 1 white-blue, for a 4 loyalty planeswalker for only 3 mana. It has a great static ability. Unbelievable static ability. Each opponent can cast spells only any time they could cast a sorcery. And I think that's where most of the value in this card is. Because even with other things going on, even if they have their own Teferi Time Raveler, you have mind twisted them for all their counterspells. Like, permanently, as long as Teferi Time Raveler's in play. All right? So Teferi has 2 loyalty abilities. One of them is +1. Until your next turn, you may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. And -3, return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand. Draw a card. So the worst version of Teferi Time Raveler is a 3 casting cost into the Royal with Kicker. With Kicker, and you still got Teferi, which is a mind twist for all their counterspells.
The ability to play sorcery spells as though they had flash is also pretty sweet with walkers anyway, in terms of just being able to protect Teferi, right?
You mean just like with removal, or?
Yeah, like your opponent's playing, so haste creatures are quite popular.
Yep.
You can just play Kaya's Wrath at instant speed.
You certainly could. Yeah.
Yeah, this is an exciting card. It's also just a 3-cost planeswalker. I mean, depending on what all incentives there are, there's some exciting opportunities if there are enough planeswalkers to really round out a deck where you actually could conceivably be playing like 14 or 15 walkers, Oh,
I think that's absolutely going to be feasible with this set. But, I mean, what do you think about the fact you're just like, third turn, you just play it and you enter the Royal then, right? Like, and you draw a card. And you still got Teferi, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to be playing the Kaya's Wrath at its speed, just, leveling its loyalty back up. But here's my thought process. I think that with this set, and it's not just Teferi, it's like thematic of a lot of the different cards and how they're put together. It's part of Jace. It's part of Nicol Bolas. I think despite the fact that we have cards like, that That Azorius Dovin instant that you were talking about earlier, that uncounterable negate Dovin's veto. I think we might be entering a time where it's the all-time worst time to be playing Permission in Standard.
Oh, I don't know about that. Maybe, but man, it sure does seem good to Dovin's veto your opponent's Planeswalker.
It does, but I feel like, okay, imagine you're just Esper, right? And you're to like turn to, Thought Erasure, get your response card, land Teferi on turn 3. That is just so plausible to me. It's so plausible. And then, if you're a Permission deck, like you're spent. It's like anything they want to do for the rest of the game, it's just happening. It's just happening.
So it's a little unassuming, but man, here is a card that I think both one bodes well for Permission, and two is quietly one of the most impactful cards in this set. Augur of Bolas. So this reprint is 1 and a blue for a 1/3 Merfolk Wizard. When Augur of Bolas enters the battlefield, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal an instant or sorcery from among them and put in your hand. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in any order. Isn't this just like the early chump blocker of your dreams?
I mean, this card's
a nightmare for red, right? And for white decks that are full of 2/1s, right?
Absolutely spectacular card. Like, this card is so much better than Omen Speaker, it's like not even worth discussing. It's so good.
Right, like this is a snap-off 4 of in so many blue-white, Jeskai, Esper. I mean, this card is phenomenal, right? Is it Drake's? Should 4 of this card? I mean, this card is just phenomenal, right?
Just speaking about in Drake's, like this, like I'm not a big Terramander fan in Drake's. I think Terramander is awesome in Mono Blue, but I think I would much rather play this than Terramander in Drake's. Right? It's just like everything that Terramander wants to do, other than being 1 casting cost, Augur of Bolas accomplishes really, really successfully. Right? So Terramander gives you the ability to just like go first turn Terramander, second turn Chart of Course, and that's cool. So Augur of Bolas can do that on 3rd turn instead of 2nd turn. But the fact that, like, unlike Terramander, this doesn't die to everything, right? The Terramander just makes a deck's removal good that wouldn't otherwise have been good against Drake's, right? Like all the other cards have 4 or 5 toughness, and Terramander has 1 toughness. So like all their Chain Whirlers, all their shocks, all their anything like that turns on. Not so here. Doesn't turn on shocks. Doesn't turn on Shivan Fires. Doesn't turn on -2/-2 sweepers of whatever kind the opponent's playing.
Yeah, and in fact, it works really well with your own. You could play Cry of the Carnarium alongside Augur of Bolas and have it just be juicy.
That's bonkers, right? So if you go Augur of Bolas, your opponent's got like a bunch of 1/1 and 2/1 type stuff, or 0/3s because they're mono white, right, or white blue, and they're just like putting out their stuff. They have to commit multiple creatures just to get through your stupid 1/3, right? So they play 2 guys the next turn. You're just walking into a sweeper, and you keep yours. That's crazy unfair. So to answer your question from before, yes, I have been an aggro guy for a long time. These cards, these Teferis, these Amass cards, these Nico Bolases, these Augur of Bolases, they have turned my heart blue-black. Blue-black white. Blue-black red. I don't know what.
You do got to be careful, because you got to remember, though, Augur of Bolas can't hit Planeswalkers.
Yeah,
so
it's okay.
There is a little bit of tension there.
We'll figure something out, Patrick.
You know what he does hit? Is Expansion Explosion.
Yeah, it's not going to be difficult to find things for this guy to do.
Here's 2 really great ones he hits. Wizard's Retort and Wizard's Lightning.
Oh my gosh, he certainly does. That's fantastic. All right, so I have 2 cards I might want to talk about that are in the same realm as Augur of Bolas.
Sure.
All right, one of them, tell me what you think about this card, because I first saw this card, I was like, oh, this card's pretty cool. Then I was like, is it really cool? Or is it like playable, or is it broken? I think it's just like probably medium to high playable. Okay, and the card is Thib the Lost. So
yeah, the rare Elvish Visionary, huh?
Yeah, so Fibblethip the Lost is 1 and a U for a legendary creature Homunculus. It's a 1/1. When Fibblethip the Lost enters the battlefield, draw a card. So it's exactly what you said. It's Elvish Visionary, but not an elf. But it has this other weird text. If it entered from your library or was cast from your library, draw 2 cards instead. When Fibblethip becomes the target of a spell, shovel Fibblethip into its library. Right? So the first thing I was thinking is like every Satyr Wayfinder, every Elvish Visionary we've ever had in Standard has been playable to high playable. This card's like bad version is just Elvish Visionary, which is high playable.
Except in blue.
Yeah, but I don't know if it might be better in blue. Like blue doesn't have
it is a legend. It is a legend though.
Early value blockers though. But here's the thing, when is it going to be cast from your library? Is it from an Experimental Frenzy? Is it from a Bolus's Citadel?
Well, when you have Experimental Frenzy, drawing 2 cards is not exactly that great.
Sure, but so when are the other times it's cast or it comes from your library? You know?
Collected Company.
Ooh, all right.
Birthing Pod. If you could cascade it, right?
Well, I mean, you could, or I mean, maybe here's one.
I don't know. I don't even know. I don't know what counts as library versus exile.
Well, how about
because with Cascade, I think you're exiling them.
Yeah, but how about Vivian's Arcbow?
Sure, that works.
I think that card's pretty good, actually.
So Vivian's Arcbow is 1 and a green for a legendary artifact that's tap and pay X, discard a card. Look at the top X cards of your library. You may put a creature card with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order.
So this is what I was thinking when I was saying, like, I think it's tough on counterspell. So in addition to that great Planeswalker we were talking about a second ago, like, you just land Vivian's Arcbow on turn 2. Isn't this problems for some decks? Like, this is like big problems.
Yeah, I mean, it's a powerful permanent if your opponent's not putting a lot of pressure on you. If you can just afford to spend your mana this way, like, that's highly detrimental to their health quickly.
Yeah. So especially, like, and you could also just be having graveyard synergies, right? Like, if you're discarding cards that are valuable to be discarded.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. Another thing you could do is Kamal's Druidic Vow, which puts land and legendary permanents onto the battlefield. This one's obviously cheap, too, so it's an easy flip. By the way, that's a card to watch. I think it's flying under the radar right now, but Kamal's Druidic Vow.
Yeah.
Man, does that card benefit a lot from, first of all, so many cheap legends so that you can actually just flip them efficiently and turn it into a very powerful Black Lotus Brain Geyser machine. But second of all, there is a boundless number of legends that you can play that are cheap to allow you to legendary sorcery.
Oh, yeah. I think that was a card that was maybe not inevitable, but like it was there, and you're like, yeah. This card seems like it should be good. It just needs some friends. And I think this is a set full of friends, right?
Oh, yeah. This is a set full of cards that will work well with that one.
All right. So here's the other card. It was kind of in the zone of Fibblethip and Augur Bolus, and I just wanted to get your take on it. Yesterday we were talking a little bit about pump spells because we had our preview card, the Def Karen Lich, who, when it attacks, it gets some value out of the graveyard, right? And it has some trample, so pump spells could help it to complete its mission. What do you think about Dreadhorde Arcanist? I've been thinking about this one a lot today. Dreadhorde Arcanist is 1 and a red for a 1/3 zombie wizard, and unusually for a 1/3 creature, it has trample. So whenever Dreadhorde Arcanist attacks, you may cast target instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost less than or equal to Dreadhorde Arcanist's power from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that card will be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So I think kind of the obvious first place that people are going with this is to play, let's play it in Modern Burn. Lightning Bolt! Lava Spike. But I actually don't think this is a great card for that archetype, but I think it might be a great card.
I mean, the first place my head goes to is in any kind of a tempo sort of, like if you're going to play with this alongside Dark Confidant and you've got a lot of cheap removal and discard, right? Like, because this card works really well with, like, if your deck is like Thoughtseize, Inquisition of Kozilek, Lightning Bolt, Angrath's Dreadbore, whatever thing, you really just want to play with cheap cards, right?
Yeah,
and one is the ideal spot, but you could conceivably be playing it with pump spells so that you can double up your pump spells so that you can do something like Become Immense and then Become Immense again.
Well, I was thinking a little bit about Become Immense, but I was more thinking about, like, first of all, similar to where you were, I was like Duresses, Lightning Bolts, but also Opts and Thought Scours, right? So if you just got a ton of ones, right? Like Dreadhorde Arcanist can just cast whatever ones you've got, which is fantastic. If they're Duresses, it's fantastic. I think not for nothing, it can be casting sorcery cards at effectively instant speed, right? That's something that's different. But with the pump spells part, it also, I think, like, you can use a pump spell as a catalyst on it. So imagine you've got Collision Colossus, right? So all of a sudden you can give it +4 power. So it can cast a 5 now, right? Besides the fact that it's now, a 5/5/5, right? A 5/5 attacking trampler. It can cast a 5 in your graveyard. I think that's
interesting.
That's really, really something. Like, because this card is already, like, you need to do a little work. It's not Ophidian, right? Ophidian.
I don't know that you have to. I disagree. I don't think you have to do. You can do the work if you want.
Yeah.
I think you can get by on. This is just a 2-cost 1/3 that every time it attacks is opting and bolting and inquisitioning and whatever.
To me, that's a little work. It's a little work, right?
No, those are cards I was playing anyway.
All right, fine.
I don't know.
It's very little work then. But if you put in, it's casting something big. It's casting something. At 5 power, it just casts the Tidings for you, right? Like, and obviously that's going to take some work to get to the Tidings in the graveyard, right? Or whatever, something big and strong. But it is not. I don't think this is a red burn modern card. I think this is for a surgeon, not for a Warhammer swinger.
Oh man, definitely a great card to Samet's Sprint. Target creature gets +2/+1 and haste and scry 1. This guy loves having +2/+1 and haste.
And scry. I mean,
sure.
I mean,
scry. The +2/+1 and haste is for the Animate or the Arcanist. The scry is for me.
Well, I think we're all going to get along with that.
Okay, here's a red card I got to get your take on. Chandra Fire Artisan.
Well,
Chandra Fire Artisan is 2 red for a 4 loyalty Planeswalker Chandra. And man, this static. Whenever 1 or more loyalty counters are removed from Chandra, she deals that much damage to target opponent or Planeswalker. And keep in mind, this is whether you remove them or your opponent removes them.
Yeah, so if they hit it, right, they're taking it to the face.
And then she's got +1, exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn, which includes land this time. And then she's got -7, exile the top 7 cards of your library, and you may play them this turn. So her +1 ability comes down and means that already if your opponent gets rid of her, they're taking 5 damage. Assuming that they kill her with damage, right?
Yeah.
Like that's pretty big.
Attempt, right? Or
right.
Or that new red boar.
And in particular, she's good at sniping Planeswalkers, but she's like a personal Howling Mine, and in just a few turns, she's 7 to the face and then a Wheel of Fortune, but better in some ways.
I think Chandra is really good friends with the Dreadhorde Arcanist, because both of them appreciate super cheap casting costs, right? So if you +1 with Chandra on the first turn that Chandra is in play, it's like you tap out for Chandra on turn 4, you probably can't do anything, right? Right? You're not going to play another land, right? Even if you get one, and you probably can't cast any spell if you're tapped out. But in subsequent turns, like, this is a card that really wants to have cheap stuff, because when you're doing the +1, cheap stuff is stuff you can cast, right? You don't want to be bottlenecked with an expensive card. But then on that -7 turn, first of all, take 7. Second of all, if those 7 are a bunch of lightning bolt type cards, you're just going to cast them all. You have enough mana at this point, right? You're just going to blow them out of the water, I think.
This, to me, looks more exciting for your mono red decks than Experimental Frenzy.
Yeah?
I think so. Yeah, I think the ability to just drop Chandra and have her be a legit win the game threat in a few turns, but also she's giving you the card advantage every turn. I don't know. I mean, it's different, right? But, like, I think she's going to be easier to use by a lot. Her ceiling isn't as high most of the time, but, like, I think that she's just going to be so much easier to use in Experimental Frenzy.
I think you might. So here's the thing: if you have Chandra, like, you just don't play it on turn 4 unless, like, you're in.
Well, if you have nothing, you might as well. But, like, she's a much better turn 5 play than a turn 4 play.
But the fact that she's not locking you out the same way that Experimental Frenzy does, like, a lot of the time you've got Frenzy and then you're just revealing frenzies with your Frenzy. Like, that's terrible, right? And so, she's gonna have not that problem, right? Like, she's not gonna get you like that. She's not going to waste nearly as much mana. Yeah, if you reveal a Chandra with your Chandra, you can cast it if you want, which just gives you another option to get another +1 or something like that. But you don't have to. Like, with Frenzy, you're basically committed to doing that, which locks you out of being able to eat the Frenzy to unlock your hand later. So, she's not getting you that way. And I think you might be right. She's far less explosive on the top end, but her, like, regular game plan is insane, right?
That's very good.
I think the -7 is unbelievable here, right? Like, because the -7 implies take 7, right? Like, that's just the ultimate on other Chandras.
But you're also drawing so many cards. You're just going to unleash on your opponent.
Absolutely, but it starts with take 7. That's the thing, right? That's the thing. So I think that. Versus some other Planeswalkers where, like, a lot of time with Planeswalkers, I'm like, all right, they've got an ultimate. It's pretty powerful. Like, yeah, Vraska's kill you. They've got, like, an assassin, or they're going to put you in a position that you're going to die. Like, but, like, that's not really what it's about. It's really about getting a treasure, or it's really about destroying a permanent, or it's really about, just gaining some positional advantage with 2/2s. I think that this card is really about this -7. And that its interplay with the static ability is outstanding. Absolutely outstanding.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still a sucker for the personal Howling Mine. We've seen so many of these red cards that cost 4, the personal Howling Mine. But I think this is just a very attractive. The fact that you've got this after just a few turns, the personal Howling Mine implies that you've got some value in the meantime if they can ever even deal with her. And the fact that they have to deal with her or win the game some other way in the next 4 turns or they're dead is that's a really powerful looming threat.
So as much as I agree with you about Chandra, Fire Artisan, perhaps taking the place of Experimental Frenzy in the red aggro decks, because I think that makes sense, I think it might be even better in the mid-range red deck in Standard. Because that mid-range red deck was sometimes playing Karn, right? I mean, there were a bunch of things it might be doing. Because they had, like, all kinds of Siege Gang Commanders and Electro Dominance and a Treasure Map or whatever. But this card seems phenomenal to me to set up a Dragon or a Siege Gang Commander, right? You're just revealing your card and like, oh, an Electro Dominance. I can certainly do something exciting with that, right? Like, and that kind of a deck just appreciates the chip shot nature of this much more than the fast red deck, right? With, like, the fast red deck, really, I think that deck wins a lot of games because the Frenzy comes out and you're like, all right, I'm going to play 6 cards this turn. Like, nobody plays 6 cards like the deck of all 1-drops, you know? But this one is just like, I'm just going to get a little bit of extra advantage, and we're going to work together to end the game in a few turns. I think the mid-range red deck is really going to like this card.
Me too. All right, awesome, dude. There's so many spoilers coming and more on their way. Obviously, we dropped an exciting one yesterday. Be sure to check out the Lich, the Storev Dev Karen Lich from yesterday's episode, and we'll be back next week continuing this deep dive into War of the Spark.
So, hot take for our first and second War of the Spark episodes. What's your favorite thing you've seen so far, Patrick? What do you like the best?
Nico Bolas,
yeah,
Dragon God.
He is certainly awesome.
What about you?
Oh, widespread brutality. In part just because of what it implies. First of all, I think it is a good ability, right? But the whole army that comes with the widespread brutality is, I'm into it.
Awesome. All right. See you next week when we break open Splinter Twin.
Life didn't work so great. Tried to play Dredge, it's a jail or hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber